Revenge films.
This is a story from a couple years ago. Back then, I was living in an apartment building by myself. On the day of the incident, I had the day off of work, and for the first time in a while, I was able to relax and do nothing at home. I didn't even go outside, and I was messing around on my cell phone when suddenly the doorbell rang. When I looked at the security monitor, there was a man standing outside. But he wasn't wearing a uniform or anything, so I was wondering who it could be when the man said,
"Please, can I borrow your bathroom?"
I was a woman living by myself, and I wasn't such an idiot that I was going to let a strange man into my apartment, so I refused on the spot. However, then the man started yelling.
"So you're just gonna let me wet myself out here?"
But even if he said that, I knew there was no way I could let him into my house, so I answered him once again and then ignored him. But then, the man actually defecated right outside my door. Right at that moment, by coincidence, a man who lived on the same floor had come home, and he saw the man defecating and called the police. However, the man threw a tantrum, and then he tackled the man who was calling the police and ran away. The only thing left on the scene was a giant pile of poop and dirty underwear and pants, which means that the man ran away from the scene just like that. The man who called the police for me then called into my apartment and told me that if I opened the door, then I would end up touching the poop. So he told me that I shouldn't open the front door. He then went to go get the building manager in my place. He even helped to clean up the mess. But because of the norovirus had been going around lately, the building manager was extremely pissed off. He went to the police station and submitted a claim against this man. After that, it didn't take long for the man to be caught by the police, and I was relieved to hear that. Luckily, I wasn't directly damaged by the incident at all, so I was able to quickly go back to my regular life and was living peacefully. But then, one day, the defecating man showed up at my door once again. When he rang the doorbell and I looked at the security camera, I saw the man standing there, and I immediately thought about the pile of poop, and it made me feel sick. The man said that he wanted to apologize and asked me to please open the door. But what a joke! This wasn't something that could be solved with a simple apology. A grown man had defecated in a place like that. There's no way that I would want to face somebody with such poor manners, so I refused once again. But then, suddenly, he said,
"If you won't open up the door for me, then I'm gonna die right here!"
I was wondering how on earth he was going to die in a place like this. But then, to my disbelief, he actually jumped over the railing. However, underneath the building was a little garden, and I knew that just off the railing was a cushioned patch of soil. And that's why, even though I was on the second floor, I knew that it wasn't actually that dangerous unless he were to do something really outrageous. But given the previous incident as well, I don't think anything good was going to come out of it, so I was ignoring him. But then, a passerby saw the man on the ground and called an ambulance. According to what I heard, just as I expected, there was a cushion of soil where the man had jumped and fell, and he was only left with a few minor scratches. He didn't have any serious injuries whatsoever, but apparently, the man himself was yelling that he jumped off of the second floor and was hurt. When the passerby heard that, he panicked that a person had jumped off the second floor of an apartment building and rushed to call the ambulance for him. But of course, if somebody just walked by without knowing anything and heard that a person had jumped off of the second floor, anybody would panic and call the ambulance. Apparently, the defecating man was saying what a monster I was and how cold-hearted I could be to not even come check on him. But if I had opened up the door that day and I got roped into some kind of incident or something happened to me, I'm sure somebody would put the blame on me. I could already see people telling me that opening the door to a stranger when I was living alone was way too careless, and that people would blame me for any harm. And that's why, even though I was only trying to protect myself in that situation, I started to get scared that if I stayed in that apartment, that the defecating man might show up again. Especially because he was the type of person to defecate in front of my door and also jump over the railing off of the second floor. The previous time and this time, I just happened to be at home with the door locked. But if by any chance I would run into him on my way going to or coming back from work, that would be terrifying. So I decided to move as quickly as possible. For the record, I heard the defecating man was given a stern warning by the police. But of course, that was a given for him to go and do such things to a woman living by herself. And not only that, after causing me enough trouble as is, he came back once again and then actually jumped off of the railing and had the ambulance called. He was the definition of a public nuisance. But well, people like that are the type of people who can't understand when others try to explain things to them. So I thought that it would be best for me to not get involved at all and simply move. Immediately after that, I moved into a different apartment building in the same area. Not long after that was when I met my husband, and when we got married, he moved into my apartment, and we've been living there ever since. For a while after I started living with my husband, I didn't run into any dangerous incidents like that. My life was peaceful, and I was relieved and had let my guard down. However, unfortunately, that didn't last for long. One day when I was home alone, I heard him knock on my door. This time, an idiot man had the wrong apartment room number and came knocking on my door. I was taking a shower at the time, and because of the sound of the running water, it was obvious that I was home. That being said, it's not like I could answer the door immediately, so I was ignoring the ringing doorbell for a couple of minutes. But then, all of a sudden, the man started throwing a tantrum outside of my door, and he began hurling insults at me.
Hey, I know that you're in there. I can hear you. Hurry up and open up. I know that you can hear me in there. How dare you ignore me? You've got some nerve. Now open up.
I could hear him punching and kicking my door at full strength. I was starting to get quite scared when, right at that moment, I heard my husband's voice. It turns out that just as this man was throwing a rampage outside of my front door, my husband came home. And then, that man made the mistake of thinking that my husband was the man that his partner was cheating on him with, and started punching him out of nowhere. I wasn't going to go outside alone when there was a man throwing a tantrum outside of my door, but because I had heard my husband's voice, I went outside as fast as I could. But then, this man who had the wrong apartment was outside with my husband, and they both started telling me that if I had just answered the door in the first place, that none of this would have happened. When they said that, it really pissed me off. My husband was punched in the face, so he said that he was going to file a police report, but then this idiot man started saying that he was going to sue me. However, in the first place, I'd put my name on my bail box and my front door, so if the man had just looked at that, then he should have known immediately that it was very clearly somebody else's apartment. And so, because the man hadn't even bothered to check that, even though he tried to sue us, he was obviously denied. And instead, he was sued by my husband, who was able to collect a settlement fee from him. Not only that, but it turns out that the man was in the middle of having an extramarital affair, and the day that he came barging into our place, it was just as he was on his way to his mistress's place. When my husband called the police on him, of course the police had to contact the man's household, which meant that his wife was notified, and she found out about the affair. Take that, you idiot. After that, of course the wife wanted to divorce him. He was stuck having to pay a settlement fee in his divorce, and apparently he was going to try to sue me and then get a settlement fee out of me. But he showed up at my place out of nowhere, and he's the one that made the mistake himself, so all of it was clearly his fault. If anything, the fact that he thought that he could sue me was shocking. I mean, seriously, how stupid do you have to be to think that that would work? And so, in the end, the man that assaulted my husband was divorced by his wife, and he was stuck having to pay a settlement fee to both my husband and his ex-wife. But no matter how you look at the situation, he did this all to himself. As for my husband, because he was suddenly assaulted out of nowhere when he came home, he was irritated, and I was also pretty irritated by his response. But eventually we both let it go. However, when I spoke about that incident to my older sister, she looked at me with a serious face and said, "Your luck with men is way too terrible. You should go and cleanse your energies." And then, I heard from the first time from my big sister that when I was 2 years old, there was actually an incident that a high school student was playing a prank and kidnapped me. Because I was still 2 years old, I probably didn't understand fear, so I didn't have any trauma from that incident. But when I think about it now, it was disgusting. On top of that, my sister told me that there was once a time that my uncle came over to our house, and because he wasn't able to have kids of his own, he asked my parents to hand me over to him. At that time, my uncle showed my dad a large amount of money and said that he would buy me from my family for a high price. But then, my dad's eyes glimmered at the money, and he agreed, and my mom was furious. Apparently, she was yelling at her husband that something must be wrong with him to sell his child for money. But my dad seemed to think that there was no problem because I would still be remaining in the family. And then he told my uncle that if he wanted kids, then he'll make one for him if he could gather a little bit more money. That was when my mom lost it and divorced him. It was scary enough to me that a man I had never seen before had showed up at my door like that. But when I heard that I was about to be sold by my own father, the more I felt like I was cursed and I couldn't stand it. And that's why I went with my older sister to a temple and asked to be cleansed. I don't know if that actually worked, but I'm looking forward to my life ahead. Later on, when I was telling my colleague about it, she said, "Maybe you're being followed by the ghost of that curse?" But to be honest, a ghost sounded much more cute. Well, as someone with such bad luck with men, I was really fortunate I was able to meet my husband. But I can only pray that nothing else bad was going to happen. My name is Melissa. It all began one day from a tiny little gut feeling that something was wrong in my otherwise normal life. And that strange feeling was because I started to realize that in my home, small disposable items like diapers, pens, and toilet paper started disappearing around the house. However, I honestly thought that it was just a little mistake that I made, and I didn't think that it was anything to make a big deal out of and simply let it go each time. However, I started to get suspicious when the change that amounted to about $7 on the countertop disappeared out of nowhere. Apparently, my husband Jonathan had just placed all of the change that he had gathered up in his bag there, and because he insisted that he definitely put it there was no doubt about it. But at the same time, I also knew that I hadn't touched it. Even though both of us insisted that we hadn't touched it, the truth was that the money was gone, and the both of us were starting to feel uneasy about what could have possibly happened to it. So, the two of us started to backtrack on the recent events that happened over the last few days. Our son Kevin was over at his grandparents' house, so he wasn't home, and the only person that had been in and out of our house wasn't my husband nor I, was a fellow mom from Kevin's preschool named Karen. But at the same time, to suspect somebody, especially a fellow mom from the preschool, of stealing from us made me feel really guilty, and I didn't want to think that it could be her. But it still felt too uncomfortable that things were disappearing from my house, so I decided to build up the courage to ask one of the other moms about it. But then, I heard some shocking words.
"What? You didn't know? Karen is famous for this."
What? What are you talking about? According to the other mom, it turns out that Karen was famous for having a bad habit of stealing from people. Apparently, countless other moms had already been victims to Karen's theft, but because the stolen items were really minor things like the things that went missing from my house, and it's not like anybody had hidden cameras or security footage from inside of their house. Because there was no definitive evidence against her, nobody had gone to the police or anything like that. It may not have been expensive, but that didn't matter to me. I was irritated that she would steal things that didn't belong to her in the first place. So the next time Karen came over to my house, I decided to put it to the test. I put on an act and purposely put on a dark face as I held a thick envelope supposedly from the bank. And then I said, "I suddenly need to take all of this out." And I flashed the inside to her. But then Karen's eyes lit up and she said, "What? What are you going to use that for?" She asked me, so I simply brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal. And then I taped the envelope shut. And then I placed the envelope inside of the drawer in the cupboard in the living room right in front of her. After that, I pretended to go to the kitchen to pour tea and left the room. But I was actually in the hallway, listening into the living room, and I heard the sound of the drawer being pulled open. She hit the nail on the head, and so I immediately went back into the living room with snacks in hand. But then Karen suddenly said, "Something came up that's important, so I gotta go. Sorry." And she backed up and rushed out of my apartment. But I saw her face, and she was grinning from ear to ear, even though she had no idea what was actually inside. As soon as she left, I opened the drawer and confirmed that the envelope was gone. When I told the neighbors and the other moms about what happened, they were all cracking up. Well, as for the reason why I'm laughing so hard about it, it's because inside of the envelope that Karen had taken was not actually any real money. It was just fake money that children use as toys. And it was simply to catch Karen in a trap. There was a mini arcade at the supermarket in our neighborhood, and I worked really hard to get all of that toy money from the crane machine. But upon a quick glance, anybody might mistake it for real money. When Karen left my apartment, I wanted to see what she was going to do after she stole the money, so I quietly followed her. When she realized that it wasn't actually real money inside, I'm sure she would want to complain to me. But if she did that, then it would be the same as confessing that she stole it out of my apartment. So I'm sure she wouldn't be able to say anything. For a couple of days after she stole the fake notes from me, I didn't see her around at all. But not long after that, she came over as usual, like nothing had happened. She said she wanted to come over to my house, but I had had enough of her stealing from me, so I firmly said to her, "Not anymore. You understand, don't you?" When I said that, her face immediately went pale.
What are you talking about? I have no clue what you're talking about.
Oh, really? You don't know what I'm talking about? When you got home, I'm sure you were shocked, weren't you? Because when you opened up the envelope from the bank, there was only fake money stuffed in there. When I left the living room that day, you stole that out of my drawer, didn't you?
Stop accusing me when you don't have any proof.
I'm not accusing you, because you were the only person that was in the room after I put away the envelope in that drawer. And then it was gone.
Just because I stole a couple of fake notes, don't treat me like I'm some kind of thief. You'll be happy if I compensate you for it, right? Here, take this. It's money. And with this, it's all settled, like nothing happened.
After she said that, Karen disappeared like she was running away. Because what she had taken from me was such a small amount, I ended up not going to the police about it. But I did tell the other moms. And after that, apparently, all of the other moms did the same thing as me and refused to let Karen into any of their homes. All at once, everybody cut off all ties with her. I heard from one of the other moms after that it's not like Karen was stealing things with any objective. She was just stealing whatever she could get her hands on. It was that grass is greener on the other side type of thing. And apparently, she was the type of person that wanted whatever belonged to somebody else. Even though luckily it was just an attempt, apparently, I was the first person that she tried to steal actual money from. But even though it was an attempt because I had set up the trap, I didn't want anything to do with her after she tried to steal such a large amount of money. Because I notified not only the fellow moms, but also the neighbors about how Karen tried to steal the envelope full of money from me, she was ignored by everybody around and instantly became an outcast. Well, she did this all to herself, and that's what I thought. But I guess it became too difficult for her to live in that community anymore, and I heard a rumor that she was going to move. I didn't think that she was going to move over this, but then I found out that it was actually that Karen was caught by the police and arrested. I thought that maybe finally somebody had reported her to the police, but it turns out that she had actually gone to an electronics store in town, and she had grabbed a huge air purifier machine and tried to steal that. That's when she was arrested by the police. Well, an air purifier wasn't that heavy, so it would be easy to carry out of a shop. But it's still a big item, so of course anybody would notice that. For the record, apparently Karen didn't even act like she was hiding anything, and instead, after grabbing the air purifier, she walked right in front of one of the employees, straight toward the door. But that was when the employee rushed to stop her and reported her to the police. That would be an obvious thing for anybody to do, but apparently she threw a tantrum on the spot.
Hey, what are you doing? Don't touch me! Let go of me!
And she was yelling at the employee who tried to stop her. One of the husbands of the moms at the preschool works at the police station, and he told us that the idiot Karen lost her temper at the police station and was actually bragging about all the things that she had stolen from other people's homes. Even though she had been stealing from the homes of the other moms, nobody ever reported her, and that's why she thought that she would never be caught by the police and she could get away with it again. And apparently she was throwing a tantrum at the police station. She was arrested when she had gotten away with it before. The things that she had stolen from us were little things like diapers and pens, nothing expensive. So nobody said anything because it seemed silly to bother police about it. But instead, she admitted to all of that and made herself guilty. So she can't blame anybody else, can she? As for the police as well, even though normally the police have to confront people and corner them to get a confession, Karen was going on a rampage, saying that she stole this and that from whose house, and yet nobody said anything. So why should she have to get arrested now? And because she was confessing her crimes, one after the other, they just sat there with their eyes wide open. But by law, no matter what you were stealing, if you stole something that's not yours, it's a crime. So after that, they went to the houses where Karen herself said she stole things from and did a full investigation. Of course, they came to our house as well. They asked me about what she stole from us when she came to our place. So I started by telling them about the diapers and pens, but then I also told them about the toy bills that I had placed in the envelope. The policeman said that he isn't supposed to laugh about these things, but he was struggling to contain his laughter as he said,
That was pretty well done. Good job.
and commended me. But after that, he said,
No matter how small the item may be, stealing something from somebody is still the crime of theft. And therefore, next time it happens, or if it ever happens again, please make sure to report it to the police.
And he scolded me a little bit as well. After that, everybody realized that the police wanted to know, so one by one, they all went into the police station to report things that Karen had stolen from them. But that amounted to more than 100 items, and I heard that the weight of her crime instantly doubled. The reason why I was able to pinpoint her as the criminal this time was because of the money. It's difficult to notice when something small has been stolen out of a pack of many, but it was still irritating that something would get stolen from me that I paid for. And that's why the only thing I can say is that she did this all to herself. In the end, after she tried to steal a large air purifier from the electronics shop this time, and so many people came to report the many items that she had stolen, no matter how small, she had multiple accounts of theft against her, and Karen was sentenced to prison. After Karen was arrested by the police and no longer in our society, it was a relief for all of us. She actually didn't have a husband, and apparently her parents had been looking after her daughter that was in the same preschool as my son. And so, when she was sentenced to prison, I heard that her daughter was taken by her parents, and that her daughter was actually happy to be living with her grandparents. Given how much she had such a habit of stealing, I could only imagine that her parents also knew about the bad habit, and that she wasn't setting a good example for her child. But I heard that her daughter is going to be living with her grandparents now, and I honestly think that that's better for the child anyway. It's important to be good role models to our kids.
My wife cheated on me in the living room of our house. It was never obvious to me that my wife was cheating, but my neighbor warned me that a man had been visiting our house lately. That's how I knew the affair. One day, on my way home from work, one of our neighbors stopped me on the street and told me,
I've noticed that a man I've never seen before has been going to your house lately. Is he your brother or your wife's brother?
That's what my neighbor asked me. I don't have any siblings, and I don't have any cousins living near me. Also, my wife and I don't have any mutual friends. That is why when I heard what my neighbor told me, the first thing that came to mind was my wife might be cheating on me. However, I didn't want to say that to my neighbor, so I just responded that the man is a friend. I managed to look unbothered in front of my neighbor, but deep inside, I was quite shaken. I was very overwhelmed, so I decided to talk to my friend about it. My friend has a past of being cheated on by his ex-wife. They're divorced now. He advised me to maintain my composure while recording and gathering pieces of evidence. It was quite expensive, but I decided to buy several tiny cameras. I asked my friend to help me set the cameras up in various places in the house when my wife was not home. My friend advised me to maintain my composure, but it's easier said than done. Ever since I heard my neighbor tell me about the man, I couldn't look my wife in the eyes anymore. Our neighbor told me that a man I'd never seen before has been visiting our house lately while I was at work. If my wife had an affair with that man, it would mean that my wife cheated on me several times already. I couldn't keep calm whenever I thought about that. About 2 weeks after my friend and I installed the cameras, we decided to check if we got any evidence from them. I was shocked and disappointed by what I saw. The cameras clearly captured my wife and the man having an affair. I was astonished and utterly speechless. After gathering all the pieces of evidence that I needed, my friend asked me what I was going to do next. What he meant was whether I would forgive my wife or get a divorce. Frankly speaking, I was unsure of what to decide. I had a very difficult time thinking about it. One does not easily dislike someone just because they were told to dislike them. But that doesn't mean what she did wasn't unforgivable. Even just doing it once is unforgivable. But to do it several times? That's beyond crazy. What's even more crazy is that they did it in the house where I live. A few more days passed, but I still didn't know what to do. However, I finally realized that I couldn't continue living with her in this house. Knowing that she betrayed me in the same house, it's difficult to pretend that nothing happened and continue being together. To cut to the chase, I decided to grill my wife with questions with divorce in mind. Then, the The next day, based on the recordings that I saw, I knew what time my wife's secret lover would arrive. I also knew that he always left 30 minutes before I arrived home. That's why I decided to go home early that day, and I checked that the man was in the house. I then waited outside the house until the man came out 30 minutes before I was supposed to arrive home from work. Just as expected, the man opened the door and was about to leave. He froze when he saw me standing outside. Behind him was my wife, who had an affair with him literally just minutes ago. She was very shocked when she saw me, so she covered her face. I then instructed both of them to go back inside. I blocked the door so they couldn't leave. They had no choice but to go back inside the room. When I arrived in the living room, I saw a used pack of condoms on the table. They must have done it here. I was about to throw up, but I forced myself to hold it in. I then shouted, "You're cheating on me, aren't you?" To which my wife ignored the man and replied,
No! You're the only one that I love, Albert.
She made an offhanded remark, while I was waiting for my wife by the front door. Honestly speaking, I still had feelings for my wife. However, now that her secret lover was in front of me, and my wife easily said in front of the man that I was the only one she loved, I was sure she told him the same thing just minutes before I showed up. I couldn't believe she could look me in the eyes and say such words to me. I was nervous about grilling her with questions, and I was worried about how I should be feeling when doing that. But once I didn't have feelings for her anymore, everything else was pretty easy to do after that. I realized that you were having an affair when our neighbor informed me that a man she had never seen before was coming to our house when I wasn't home. So I bought a couple of cameras and installed them around the house. I already have all the pieces of evidence that I need, so there's no point for you denying that what I claim is not true. With a straight face, that's what I told my wife and her secret lover. By the way, I already got my wife's secret lover's life investigated. Apparently, he lived with his parents. As for his work, he wasn't a full-time employee, but a part-time worker. I had no idea how he and my wife met, but frankly, I didn't care about that anymore. After I learned how the man was living, I sent a letter addressed to his parents, scheduled to arrive on the same day. That day, about the fact that he and my wife were cheating, and I also sent a content-certified letter stating a compensation claim. When I told the man about what I did, he went very pale, like he saw a ghost or something. Well, no matter how much he regretted his actions, he couldn't stop his parents from reading the letter, because I was sure it already arrived. In the meantime, I allowed the dazed man to go home for the time being, and I decided to talk to my wife, one-on-one. I knew that if her secret lover ran away, he didn't have enough money, because he lived with his parents. Also, since I already told both his parents about the fact that their son had an affair with my wife, I was certain that even if I didn't do anything, his parents would probably look for him. Then, after her secret lover went home, I told my wife that I wanted a divorce, to which she replied that she didn't want to get a divorce. Before all of this happened, since I earned enough for both of us, my wife became a full-time housewife and stayed at home. That's why she probably thought that she couldn't let go of her comfortable life with me.
I will make up for my mistake of having an affair, even if it will take me a lifetime. So please, forgive me. I know you have a huge heart. Please, find it in you to forgive me. I beg you, Albert.
My wife apologized to me again and again, but to my surprise, I didn't feel anything at all. Before I came home, I stopped by the government office to get a copy of the official divorce registration form. I then said to my wife, "I'm sorry to say this, but instead of making it up with feelings, compensate me with money. I don't want to continue being married to you from now on, and I don't want to live in a place where you had an affair, because it's disgusting! I'm planning to sell this house immediately."
Oh no! If you sell the house, what should I do? Where should I live?
I don't know, and I don't care. Figure it out yourself. I won't allow you to tell me that you didn't know what it means to cheat, or you didn't know what the consequences are of that act. Go back to your parents' home, or find work and live on your own!
No! It was just a passing fancy. You're the only one I truly love. I was just fooling around with that man.
My wife crumbled and started screaming and shouting while crying. But from my point of view, I was thinking, why now? I would never allow her to say that she didn't know the risk and what the consequences of her actions were. She was a full-grown adult. I knew that she knew what she did. What's worse is that she brought the man home every time, so I couldn't help thinking how she truly was an idiot. I already told her earlier that I sent the proof of the content of infidelity to her parents, so my wife clung to me, begging me to reconsider. Even if she did that, my feelings were set, so they wouldn't change anymore. It was very strange as to why she had an affair in our house when she knew that she'd have to show disgraceful behavior. Whatever the reason, I didn't have anything else to talk about with my wife anymore, so I let the lawyer take care of everything else. I then packed up all of my things and left the house. Honestly, even while I was grilling both of them with one question after another, I felt nauseous breathing the same air as them, in the same room where they had an affair. So I wanted to leave the place as soon as possible. After that, I asked my friend to let me stay for a while at his house. As for the house, I immediately contacted the moving company to move my things. I hired another company to clean the entire house, to prepare for the house to be sold in the market. After I left our previous home, I heard that my wife went home to her parents' house, and when she arrived there, her father stalled her face. She called me while crying, but I hung up the phone immediately. Actually, apart from sending the proof of contents about the affair at his parents' house, I also sent a copy to his workplace. I have no idea what my wife's secret lover's parents said to him when he ran away and went home, but what I heard is that he was kicked out of their house that same day. As for his workplace, I heard that since he wasn't a full-time employee and he just worked part-time there, he was let go pretty easily. As for my ex-wife, her parents cut off ties with her and kicked her out of their house. She sent me the same message over and over, asking me to help her with her situation. We already got a divorce, and I didn't have anything I wanted to do with her anymore. So as a final blow for my revenge, I demanded a $10,000 alimony from both of them. My wife's secret lover cried, saying he couldn't pay that amount. But that wasn't my problem to worry about. I would confiscate all the money that he currently had, and I was planning to make them pay a certain amount monthly to make sure that they paid the consequences for their actions. No matter how hard they work, their money will just directly go to alimony payment. I think that they should feel wretchedness and misery while regretting and repenting for their unforgivable actions.
My name is Tomoko. I'm a part-time receptionist at a construction company, and I'm currently living together with my husband. My husband, Yuya, is a regular salesman that you'd see anywhere. But there's one thing about him that's been bothering me. He's still very close with his mother, and is not a very independent person. 3 years after we got married, we finally decided to get our own place. And so, we started looking for places we could build a new house on. That's when my husband told me that he wanted to find a plot of land that was close by to his parents' place. I had a good relationship with my in-laws, so moving into their neighborhood didn't really bother me much. But once we actually moved into our new home, things started to go wrong. A couple of weeks after we got our own place, my sister-in-law moved back in with her parents. And after that, she started visiting our home almost every day. She would come and visit even when my husband was away at work, so I was having a hard time dealing with her by myself. That's because my sister-in-law is a very selfish, proud, and paranoid person. Having a conversation with her can be very tiresome and stressful. And one day, when I was listening to my sister-in-law brag about herself as usual, she told me that I wasn't a good listener. After saying that, she stormed out of the house in a fit of rage. But that was when she started bringing her mother with her whenever she visited my house.
Hey, Tomoko. I know you're in there. Open up.
What? What are you guys doing here? I didn't know you guys were coming today.
We're gonna be eating dinner here today, so make sure you cook enough for all of us.
What?
And we're gonna be bringing some food back home for Dad, so don't forget to make something for him as well.
But this is crazy. You can't just show up and make me cook dinner for you guys. You need to talk to me about these things beforehand.
Oh, come on. Don't be like that. And besides, it's not like you're busy anyway. You only work part-time, right?
Cooking for 5 people isn't that different from cooking for 2 people. So there isn't anything you should be worried about.
But ma'am, that night, I had no choice but to cook dinner for my in-laws. I thought that was the only time they were going to come unannounced to my place for dinner, but I was wrong. From that day on, they started coming over to eat dinner every single night. I guess they realized that if they made me cook dinner every night, they wouldn't have to prepare anything themselves. And the worst part about this was that they wouldn't even clean up after themselves. After they finished eating, they would just leave without washing the dishes or cleaning the table. This lasted for a couple of weeks, and I was getting tired of this lifestyle. So I decided to talk to my husband about it and see if he could do anything to alleviate my stress. Hey, your sister and your mom have been eating dinner at our place recently. They've been coming over almost every night, and it's getting too much for me to handle.
Well, I obviously know about that already. After all, I'm the one that's been inviting them over.
What? Are you kidding me? Why wouldn't you talk to me about this first?
Well, my sister-in-law's been spending a lot of money outside of work lately, so I told her that she could come over to our place and have dinner so she wouldn't have to spend money on groceries.
But we've been spending a lot of money on groceries thanks to them. It's not like we're super wealthy either.
Well, your job is to figure that out. You're my wife, aren't you? You need to be taking care of things around the house. And besides, the meals you've been cooking up lately have been kinda disappointing. I need you to start putting more effort into cooking.
That's easy for you to say. I have to cook for 5 people now. What the hell am I supposed to do?
Well, why don't you start working more hours so you can provide for my family, huh? Is that too much to ask for?
I couldn't believe that my husband was the one that's been allowing his sister and mother to come over to our place every night for dinner. And after I found that out, I started looking at him differently. But nothing changed, and my in-laws kept coming over to have dinner at our place. I had to cut into my savings to put food on the table every day, and that's when I started thinking about getting a divorce with my husband. But one day, when I was out shopping for groceries, I saw my mother-in-law and sister-in-law coming out of the casino. I can't believe this. So they were gambling away their money while I've been working my ass off every day to make ends meet for my family. This is ridiculous. That's it. I've had enough. That night, my husband got back from work early, so we decided to eat dinner together with the 4 of us. And that's when I made my move. I decided to confront my in-laws in front of my husband. By the way, I saw you two coming out of the local casino earlier today. But were you guys gambling? That's how you've been spending your money? I can't believe you guys. You know how much money I've had to spend in order to feed you guys every day? I could tell that question pissed them off because they immediately replied with this.
What? So you're gonna try to make our lives miserable? Is that it?
What we do in our free time shouldn't matter to you. Leave us alone.
You're my wife and you're supposed to support my family no matter what. If you can't do that, then you can leave.
And that's when I decided to get revenge on these 3 before I got a divorce with my husband. The next day, my husband had a day off that day, but when I woke up, he was already gone. I guess he had somewhere he had to go. And so I immediately packed my bags and got ready to buy some necessities at the local market. And there, I bought a large quantity of a particular item and went home. And later in the afternoon, my in-laws came to visit our house again. My husband was with them when they got here, but they immediately noticed that something was off and came running into the kitchen.
Well, what the hell is this smell?
I prepared kusaya for dinner tonight. There's enough for all of us, so make sure you eat as much as you can. And you can bring some home with you if you don't finish them all.
What the hell? Is this supposed to be some kind of prank?
No, of course not. This is just tonight's dinner. But anyway, you all better finish everything, or else.
God damn it! This place smells like rotten fish now! I can't live in this place anymore! What the hell were you thinking?
Well, this is your home, and you're still paying back the mortgage, so it's not like you can move out of this place. But I am. I'm moving out.
What?
Here, take this. They're divorce papers.
What? What is that for? I don't understand.
I'm sorry, but I do not want to associate myself with you guys anymore. I don't deserve to get mistreated by you guys anymore. And I'm going to make sure that you all compensate me for the trouble you've caused me. So buckle up. I'm coming after your money, and I'm going to get what I want one way or another.
Wait, hold on. You can't tell my husband about this.
Oh, so your husband doesn't know about what you guys have done, huh?
What are you planning on doing?
Well, I don't want to live in the stink house anymore, so I'm moving back in with my parents.
Hold on. You've got to get rid of these rotten fish before you go. You're the one that brought these things into the house, right?
But I cooked these just for you. Come on, eat up. You're hungry, aren't you? And so I quickly grabbed my stuff and left the house. And even after I got back to my parents' place, I still had a lot of things I needed to do. First, I had to create a bill so I could make my former in-laws pay for all the groceries I had to buy to cook dinner for them. I knew I was going to have to do this eventually, so thankfully, I saved up all of the receipts. And when I added everything up, I found out that I had spent a whopping $2,000 on groceries in the past few months. And so after that, I sent my father-in-law a letter explaining what had happened. I also made sure to include the bill statement in the envelope. And a few days later, my husband gave me a call.
You told my father about what we did, didn't you? He scolded us for hours last night, and now he's saying that he wants to cut ties with us. What are you gonna do to fix this, huh?
Well, I'm glad your father has some common sense, unlike you guys. But anyway, can you please just turn those divorce papers in?
My sister and mom are here right now because they got kicked out of their house by my dad, but this place still smells like rotten fish, so we can't even eat anything in here without almost throwing up. You need to come and clean this mess.
But all I did was cook dinner for you guys. I haven't done anything wrong. But anyway, you're gonna have to pay me soon, or I'm going to have to sue you guys.
Stop! I can't afford to hire a lawyer. Please, don't do this to us.
Well, if you don't want me to take you to court, then you need to pay me right now and hand those divorce papers in. Got it?
But what the hell am I supposed to do about the smell?
I guess that worked because a few days later, my husband deposited the money into my account and turned the divorce papers in. And now, he's forced to live in a house that smells of rotten fish with his mother and sister. My former in-laws didn't change their lifestyle though, and they used up all of their money on slot machines. My ex-husband couldn't afford to feed them anymore, so after a long fight, he ended up kicking them out of the house. They tried apologizing to my former father-in-law and asked him to let them move in with him again, but he refused. They're supposed to be getting a divorce soon. That's why Yuya's mother and sister had to move into an old apartment building that didn't even have running water. The debt collectors are after them now though, and they're probably gonna have to move out of that place too. My ex-husband reached out to me the other day and asked me if we could start our relationship over, but I immediately declined. Now my husband has to pay back his mortgage alone. He has no one he can rely on now. On the other hand, my life has been going pretty well recently. After talking with my boss, she agreed to rehire me as a full-time employee, and with my increased salary, I'm now renting a room in a high-rise apartment building. Hopefully, I can start living my life freely now. I don't want my life to be controlled by others again.
My name is Masato, and currently I'm living with my wife, Chizuru. She's 3 years younger than me, and she's a bit of a goofball. She doesn't like doing the chores around the house very much, and when she comes back from her part-time job at the family diner, she sits on the sofa and plays games on her phone. That's why I do most of the chores for her. I would love it if she helped out a little more, but she's energetic and pretty, so I could never be too hard on her. But I guess I shouldn't have pampered her like that because she started going out every night without even telling me when she was coming home. And so one day, I got tired of her behavior and decided to talk to her about it. But that's when she said something unbelievable.
I'm home.
Welcome back. Where were you?
I was eating out with some of my friends.
You've been eating out every night recently.
Yeah, so what? Do you have a problem with it?
Who do you even go out with every night?
I always go out with some of my coworkers. They're all nice people, and I love hanging out with them.
Wait, really? None of them are guys, right?
Well, some of them actually are. Why do you ask?
Wait, you're kidding, right? An awkward silence filled the room for a couple of seconds. But then my wife started telling me all about these co-workers that she'd been hanging out with. She told me that she's even gone out drinking with one of her male co-workers just by themselves. But you really shouldn't be going out drinking with other men. It's almost like you're cheating on me. It doesn't make any sense.
Really? Well, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of into him. And I've been thinking about who I should choose. You or him.
And when I heard her say that, my jaw dropped. I was so shocked that I couldn't even say anything. She's interested in another guy? So she's basically admitted to cheating on me. How is this any fair? Sure, my wife was a bit of a goofball, but this was crossing the line. I couldn't let her do this to me anymore. So you are cheating on me then? What the hell? I can't let you see this guy anymore. Please, stop going out for drinks with him.
What? Are you kidding me, right? But I need him in my life. I can't just not see him anymore. I love you, but I can't just do that for you.
Are you being serious right now?
Of course I am. I didn't know you were this stubborn. I'm kind of disappointed in you right now, honey. But anyway, I'm gonna think about who I should choose, so can you leave me alone for a bit?
And so my wife locked herself up in her room for the rest of the night. She didn't even come out the next morning and stayed cooped up in her little den. And the next day, my wife left the apartment without telling me. She didn't come home for a week, and during her absence, she ignored all of my text messages and calls. She's definitely at her boyfriend's house, isn't she? This is insane! How could she do this to me? And while I was at home alone, I thought about a lot of things. I've been taking care of her this entire time, but she abandoned me out of nowhere and left me for another man. Everything I've done for her, but it was all for nothing. The more I thought about it, the more I became sad and pissed off. And on day 7, I made up my mind. I'm going to stop waiting for my wife to come back home, and I'm going to do everything I can to take advantage of my current situation. And so, I visited a lawyer to figure out what my options were. He gave me a lot of helpful advice, and we thought about different things I could do to make my wife pay for betraying me. But we eventually came to the conclusion that I should ask my wife who her boyfriend exactly is and seek compensation from him. And a week later, when I got home from work, my wife was sitting on the sofa like nothing had happened.
Hey, welcome back.
I wanted to yell at her and ask her why she was doing this to me, but I held back my anger. I wanted to make sure that I got her boyfriend's name out of her, so I had to restrain myself. So where the hell were you?
I was at my boyfriend's house, obviously.
What kind of person is he?
He can be a bit childish and immature at times, but he's also very straightforward and talkative. I feel like we're just meant to be, you know?
I see.
We've been talking, and we decided that it'd be best if I got a divorce with you. Sorry, Masato.
What?
I told him about how you asked me to stop seeing him, and he told me that I should get a divorce with you.
I guess getting a divorce from me isn't that big of a deal for her. That kinda makes me sad.
So, how much can you pay me?
What? What are you talking about? Why would I pay you anything?
Well, I heard that men have to pay their wives money when couples get a divorce, and I was planning on using that money to move into a new home with my boyfriend.
I couldn't understand what my wife was saying, but this gave me an idea. I know how I can get revenge on my wife now, and so, in order to execute my grand plan, I decided to let my wife continue believing this lie.
And once you figure out how much you need to pay me, let me know. We're gonna need a lot of money to move out of our current apartment, so make it quick, all right?
Okay, sounds good. I'll definitely contact you once I figure out the situation with the compensation. But could you tell me why you're getting a divorce from me? I want to know more about your boyfriend. I mean, you love him more than me, right? That must mean that he's a really attractive person and I want to become more like him.
Sure.
And when I praised my wife's boyfriend, she started talking about him endlessly. I guess she really wanted to brag about her soon-to-be husband. I made sure to record our conversation with my phone so I had evidence that could come in handy later. Apparently, my wife's boyfriend is one of her co-workers, and they're the exact same age. I guess that's part of the reason why they get along with each other. They started sleeping with each other about 6 months ago after they both attended an end-of-the-year party together. And after that, they started seeing each other almost every other day. He currently lives with his parents, so he and my wife really need me to compensate them for the divorce so they can get a place for themselves. I had a hard time listening to her talk about her new boyfriend, but I knew I had to pay attention to get revenge on her. And a few days later, my wife went to her boyfriend's house again, and she hasn't come home for a few days. So while she was away, I had a locksmith come over to our house and change the lock on our front door. I also contacted her boss at the family diner and told her about the affair she was having with her coworker. I got support from my lawyer, and we were able to track down her boyfriend's address. And then we sent his parents a letter detailing what their son has done. A few hours later, my wife came home with sweat running down her forehead.
What the hell? Why won't you open the door, Masato? Are you in there? You need to open the door. Please, let me in.
What do you want?
I need to talk to you about something. Apparently, I have to compensate you for the divorce now, which doesn't make any sense. And his parents know about what my boyfriend did now, and they kicked him out of their house. What in the world is going on?
Well, please talk to my lawyer about that. I'm not interested in having a conversation with you anymore. Oh, and I sent your parents the divorce documents, so make sure you sign them.
What? You sent the divorce document to my parents' place? Anyway, you need to open the door. I have nowhere to go now.
Well, why should I care? You're the one that wanted the divorce in the first place, right?
But you never told me that I was going to have to pay you, and not the other way around.
You cheated on me, and it's only fair that you compensate me for betraying me.
What? But that doesn't make any sense. I never cheated on you. I told you about my boyfriend, didn't I?
That doesn't matter. You can't go out with another man when you're already married to me. Now go home.
Please, you can't abandon me like this. We can talk about this, you know? And besides, we don't really have to go through with the divorce.
Well, it's too late for that. Your parents should have already received the divorce documents, so we can't turn back now.
No! Why the hell is this happening to me?
You brought this upon yourself. My wife and her boyfriend have been maxing out their credit cards recently because they thought I was going to have to compensate them for the divorce. But because of that, they're in a ton of debt now. And when his parents read the letter I sent them, they found out that their son had been knowingly going out with a married woman. They ended up kicking the two out of the house and cut ties with them entirely. I also explained the situation in depth to my wife's parents, so now they're really mad at her as well. I guess that's why she has nowhere to go now. And they also ended up getting fired from their jobs. Now they're roaming the streets without anywhere to go. They don't have anyone to support them anymore, and so they're trying to figure out how they can survive every day. My wife had to let go of her phone as well, so she hasn't reached out to me in weeks. Oh, yeah, and a year after I got a divorce with my ex-wife, I got a new girlfriend. I don't want to date someone like her ever again, and hopefully things will go better this time around.
My name is Michelle. I am a single mother of 2 twin sisters who are currently in high school. The older twin sister, Jessica, and younger twin, Rachel, were like 2 peas in a pod. They get along really well, and they are attending the same high school at the moment. My ex-husband Kevin and I got divorced 10 years ago. At the time, our daughters were still 5 years old. The reason behind our divorce was because my ex-husband cheated on me and left me. My ex-father-in-law was the CEO of a major company, and my ex-husband was going to become the next generation CEO and had a very high reputation. He also had a very high salary, so it wasn't rare for women to come after him, especially those that were after his status and money. And my ex-husband wasn't shy about that attention either. Because of him, I experienced a war zone that was traumatizing. One day, I had taken my daughters to preschool, just like I did every morning, and went back home. However, when I got home, suddenly the doorbell rang to our apartment. When I answered the door, there was a young woman standing there that I had never seen before. "Sorry, who are you and why are you here?"
Are you Kevin's wife?
"Yes, I am. Why do you ask?"
I'm actually dating Mr. Kevin right now, and you're in the way. So can you hurry up and get a divorce?
"What? I don't understand what you're saying. Out of nowhere."
Whatever. Just hurry up and break up with him. Mr. Kevin can't wait to leave you, so hurry up and get a divorce. He's mine now.
As soon as she said that, the mistress suddenly lunged towards me and started grabbing my hair. And then she was pushing me against the wall and punching me and kicking me and violently assaulting me. Because of that, I was covered in cuts and bruises, and I was terrified. It was traumatizing. When my husband came home from work that day and I told him what happened, I got the most outrageous response. "Your mistress came here today and she physically assaulted me. Look at all of these bruises."
Is that true? I didn't know that she was in love with me. She was young and beautiful, wasn't she? I didn't know that she was serious about me. That makes me happy to hear.
"What? But don't you see how hurt I am?"
There's no way that such a beautiful young woman would ever hurt somebody. But anyway, let's get a divorce.
"A divorce? What are you talking about? What about the girls?"
If you need money, then I'll figure it out. Anyway, we're getting a divorce. And that's that.
I was furious with my husband's attitude and the way he wasn't taking any responsibility. But I knew that he always had a weakness for younger women. On top of that, he was always emotionally abusive towards me at home. And I actually remember feeling relieved deep down inside when we got the divorce, and that the reason behind it was because he cheated on me. It puts me in a more advantageous situation. My ex-husband told me that he would pay the settlement fee for the affair, as well as the child support fees in one payment. He then said that in return for paying a large amount of money, he asked me not to say anything about the affair to those around us. I couldn't really accept his way of settling this, but if it meant that I would be able to focus on raising my twin daughters and not have to worry about working for a while, I decided to agree. After that, my ex-husband and I became estranged, and I became a single mother of my 2 beautiful daughters. And now, 10 years after that, just as my daughters started high school, I suddenly received a phone call from that ex-husband when I hadn't heard from him in 10 years since the day we got the divorce. I answered, and my ex-husband sounded like he was in a panic and asked me to meet him as soon as possible. I didn't know what he wanted or what was going on, but I decided to meet my ex-husband where he asked me to meet him. When I got to the cafe, he looked a lot older than he did 10 years ago, and he suddenly came begging to me.
I have a favor to ask you. You have to listen.
"What do you want? Calling me out of nowhere after 10 years?
It's an emergency. My daughter's sick. So I want you to give my daughter one of the twins' organs. I'll give however much money you want. I'll double it.
What do you mean, one of their organs? Obviously not. That's not possible.
Why not? You have 2. Shouldn't you be happy as long as you have 1 child left? Even if you have 1 less, you still have 1 left with the exact same face.
How can you say that?
I'm sure you're struggling as a single mother, aren't you? I'm sure life is going to be easier for you if one of the twins is gone anyway, right?
What the hell do you think our daughters are? There's no way I'm going to sell my child's organs. Get out of here.
You don't even have any money! Who do you think you are? You're just a poor, single mother. You better keep your mouth shut and just do as I say!
The words that came out of my ex-husband's mouth were so awful that I couldn't believe he could say that about his own daughters. I was furious, and I lost it on the spot, and I immediately declined. However, my ex-husband didn't seem like he could accept my answer, and he stormed out of the cafe. He had already broken up with his mistress from 10 years ago, a long time ago. Apparently, he pushed their 2 children onto that mistress and paid her money, and he once again started dating an even younger woman. Just like he did with me 10 years ago, he told his first mistress that he was going to get together with his second mistress and got another divorce, and he settled everything quietly with money. And this time, with his young wife, he has a 5-year-old daughter and spoiled her more than any of his other children. But then, that daughter was discovered to be sick, and he was trying to save that daughter's life by trading it out for the life of one of his other daughters, one of the twins. I was up to my head with anger, and I thought about exposing my ex-husband's 10 years of affairs and scandals just as he was about to become the CEO of his father's company. However, he seemed like he was having a difficult time with the other of his daughter, and as a fellow parent, I decided to give him some sympathy. But after that, I received multiple phone calls and messages from my ex-husband, and he kept begging me to give up one of my daughter's organs. It seemed like he didn't even care whatsoever about the lives of the twins anymore, and I felt a strong anger boiling inside of me. I started ignoring his phone calls, but a few days later when I came home from doing the groceries, I saw my ex-husband standing outside of my apartment building. "That's enough already. Cut it out. I can't believe you came to my house. This is too much."
Come on, I'm begging you, please! Help me save my precious daughter!
Jessica and Rachel should be your precious daughters too.
Oh, please. Those twins were raised pathetically in a single-mother household. Instead, my daughter, who's being raised under the next generation CEO, has a much brighter future ahead of her. I'm telling you that I'll buy your daughter's life for a large sum of money when she's not even worth that much to begin with. You better be grateful for this offer.
You're the worst. I can't believe this. Don't ever show your face in front of me ever again. Hearing my ex-husband, unbelievably horrible, my anger reached its limit, and I forced my ex-husband to leave me in the apartment building. But then, a few days after that, my nightmare happened. One day when I was waiting at home for my daughters to come home from school, as soon as Rachel came into the door, she came running into the living room in a panic. "Rachel, what's the matter? You seem like you're panicking. Calm down. What's happened?"
Mom, you have to help! Jessica's been kidnapped!
Kidnapped? What do you mean? I also started panicking, and when I asked Rachel what happened, she said that on their way home from school, a black car stopped right in front of them, and that they had forcibly grabbed Jessica and shoved her into the car and drove off. It was obvious to me that this was my ex-husband's doing, but I didn't have any evidence to prove that, so I first immediately called the police. The investigation began, and as my daughter and I were explaining the situation in detail to the police, I received a phone call from my ex-husband. I had already spoken to the police about my suspicions that this was done by my ex-husband, and so they started recording the conversation in order to continue with the investigation. But without knowing any of that, without showing any sign of guilt, Kevin started speaking.
I'm going to be taking Jessica's organs. I'll give you as much money as you want, so you better not go to the police. I'm about to become the CEO of my company, so I promise that I'll pay you a large sum of money.
I was shaking with anger. But with the police by my side, they gave me instructions and asked me to continue getting my ex-husband to talk while they recorded the conversation and gathered enough evidence. I held on my anger as much as I could and tried not to make it obvious and spoke for a few minutes. Finally, the police gave me the sign that they succeeded in getting enough evidence, and so I immediately hung up the phone. And then, because the police had already begun the search for Jessica, it didn't take long for them to be able to use footage from security cameras around town and eyewitness information to be able to guess where my daughter was being held. Not only that, but because they were able to hack my husband's phone from his phone call and find the GPS location, they were able to find Jessica within 3 hours from her being kidnapped. They found Jessica in the garage of my ex-husband's new house. When she was freed, thankfully she didn't have any injuries. My ex-husband was home, and when the police barged in, he panicked and tried to run away. But of course, he was quickly tackled and taken down and arrested. My ex-husband was taken behind bars and arrested and charged with kidnapping. Because the next generation CEO of a major company was arrested, it was quickly taken up by the media. And because of that, I didn't even have to expose my ex-husband's affairs. The mass media and social media took up his scandals and his divorces from his multiple affairs, and he went viral for all the wrong reasons. Of course, there was no way that my ex-husband was able to become the CEO after that, and instead he had to empty his savings account in order to pay a settlement fee to us from the kidnapping. While my ex-husband was behind bars, it was decided that his sick daughter would undergo an extremely intensive and expensive surgery overseas. Because he had to pay the extremely high medical fees, he had completely drained all of his assets. Apparently, his daughter's surgery went well, and after that she's been recovering steadily. But after he was arrested, and he no longer had any money, even though his daughter was finally saved, his wife took her and left him, and she ended up divorcing him. After everything that he had done getting exposed to society, my ex-husband was left isolated with people pointing at him everywhere he went. Even after he was released from jail, of course he wasn't able to go back to the life that he had before. Because the next generation CEO was arrested, and it resulted in the company reputation going down, it seemed that his father had enough and disowned him when he was released from prison. My ex-husband lost his family, his job, his assets, and everything he had, and I heard that he's been drowning himself in alcohol and living in poverty. As for me, I was really traumatized from the kidnapping of my daughter, but Jessica herself seemed to be able to heal from it quickly, especially since she wasn't hurt and found so quickly. She seems to be living her life happily, and I'm truly relieved. After the kidnapping incident, my daughter said that she admired the police for how quickly they found her, and she started focusing on her studies in order to become a policeman herself. Looking at my strong and proud daughter, I knew that I was going to be using all of the money I ever received from my ex-husband for their futures. From now on, I'm going to continue protecting my daughters.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.